Well, hello, and welcome to my channel. Tonight, I've got something a little different. It is the season for ghost stories and scary stories and, well, scary ghost stories. Put it all together. So I have a scary ghost story for you. And as with all ghost stories, it is 100% true. So, without further ado, here is my ghost story. It was 2010, and the station I work for in the church that owns the station had just purchased another station, an AM station, in Bakersfield, California. Now, this station was not technically in Bakersfield proper. It was kind of outside Bakersfield in a little community called Oildale. Now, Oildale has its own history, its own past, let's just say it has its own storied past, not necessarily a pleasant one or a positive one. So we're driving out there. Now, at the time, the FCC had a rule that stations that didn't have a remote control must be controlled by somebody on site for the entire time that the station is being operated. Well, the station did not have a remote control yet, so that meant that we would have to stay on site. So this property is 33 acres in the middle of pasture land and oil fields. So we're out in the middle of nothing. There is cows out there, a few homes, but that's about it. So we drive out there. It is August, late August. It's hot. And we're driving out there. It's myself, my boss, and another coworker. And we're out there to inspect everything and to basically start our time staying on site. So we have an RV that we borrowed, and we are driving this and a couple of trucks out there. So we get out to the site, we pull up, and we see four towers, 300 feet each, on 33 acres of nothing. Surrounded by hundreds of acres of nothing. Surrounded by even more acres of oil fields, which basically is nothing. We pull up onto the site. Everything's hunky-dory. So that first night, all three of us stayed the night in the RV. And, of course, that first night, we have coyotes having a party just on the other side of the fence of our 33 acres. Where we're staying, what the transmitter building is in the middle of this 33 acres. And so these coyotes are way out there in the distance, hooping and hollering and doing their yip, 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 yip thing. Great. We're not sleeping tonight. Night number 2. Much calmer. Full moon. There's this sense that, I don't know, there's history here on this land. There's a sense of, not necessarily that something's watching you or that you're not alone, but it was just this sense of something else. On this land, on these 33 acres, there is nothing that's not man-made. There's a building, some containers for storage, the 4 towers, and the little ATUs at the base of each tower. So everything else is basically mowed down grass and dirt. And that's it. The other edge of the property, where our gate is this palm tree. Is it a palm tree? I believe it was a palm tree. We'll call it a palm tree. A palm tree that's just sitting there by itself. Nothing there. And as the full moon rose coming out of the east, it created these shadows of this tall palm tree across the ground. It was cool. I got some cool pictures out of it. It was neat. It was warm, so you could be outside. No big deal. A couple of days go by. I'm now there by myself. My boss and the other coworker, they went back home. And we were supposed to be doing rotating shifts of, on a couple of days, off a couple of days, so that way nobody was stuck out there full time. So on one of these times that I was out there basically for the weekend. So it was like a 3 or 4 day stretch for me to be out there. And it was a Saturday, and I was already on the phone with my wife and said, hey, come up and visit, stay the weekend. So she comes up, we're there in the RV just kind of hanging out. My little son, he's like 1 or 2 at the time. And so we're out there, and we're like, hey, let's get lunch, I'm hungry. So we're like, okay, there's a Subway in town, there's a couple of other little Mexican restaurants and different places to eat. So we all hop in the car, crank the AC because it's like 120 degrees outside, middle of the day. Let me explain a little bit more what's outside of our fence. So just to the south of our site is a small area of the surrounding land that we have to cross. And then just on the other side of that is the road that winds and weaves and goes with kind of the landscape. And there's always people out there riding their bikes, driving by. I think they were doing practice for the Tour de France or some sort of biking event. And as we pull up to the inner gate, the air conditioning's on, I hop out, and for some reason, I leave the door wide open. Radio's on just a smidge, not much, just barely above a whisper. So I hop out to open the gate. It's one of these ranch gates that you have to manually open. And I get out. As I walk around the car door, coming up to the gate, I'm looking down to make sure I don't step on any snakes. And as I start to approach the gate, I'm maybe 5 feet away from the gate. From about 20 feet off to my left, kind of where that palm tree I was telling you about was, I hear, you need help with that. Just casual, you need help with that. Oh, I think, it's the landlord. No big deal. I look up to say no thank you. I'm forming the N of the no thank you on my tongue. And as I look up, there's nobody there. I kind of look around, and then I'm thinking, okay, maybe it's somebody on the road, some bicyclists. I look over towards the road. I don't see anybody. Now remember I said the road dips and curves, so I figure, well, maybe it's a bicyclist that's kind of in one of the dips. All right, so I'm standing there. I'm watching the road. I don't see anybody. By this time, obviously it's 120 degrees outside, and I've left the car door open. My wife is wondering, well, what are you doing? And she's like, what is it? And I said, I thought I just heard somebody say something. And she says, yeah, who was it? And I said, wait, you heard that too? And she says, yeah, I heard it. What did you hear? She said, I heard, do you need help with that? I said, okay. There's nobody out here. Right? So by this time, we're both looking. We're watching the road. We're looking around. I mean, there really isn't a place for someone to hide. There's nobody out there. It literally sounded like somebody was 10, maybe 20 feet away that just casually said, do you need help with that? We kind of looked at each other, went, huh. I opened the gate, pulled the car through, closed the gate. As I'm closing the gate, again, I'm sweeping my head around, looking, scanning to see if there's anybody around. Can't find anybody. So we drive out to the outer gate, which gets us onto the road. Again, looking up and down the road, no one. So I figured, well, if it was a bicyclist, I'm going to catch up with them if they are heading towards town. So as I'm driving, I'm looking. There was nobody out there. There was nobody around. Couldn't figure it out. And I talked it over with my mentor. And, there are some people who high radio frequency fields tend to have kind of effects on people. Uneasiness, just different kind of things. Okay. But this wasn't that. I distinctly heard a voice. My wife distinctly heard a voice. There is this really cool phenomenon with AM radio, which this was an AM station, where sometimes the fences will kind of rust or oxidize, and it will start decoding the station and converting RF into audio. And you'll hear like the fence talking at you and crazy things like that. This was not that. I experienced that a few months later in one of the winter times when it was kind of foggy, and I came out there early in the morning and the fence was talking at me. We both kind of listened to the radio when it happened, and it wasn't that. So, what was it? I don't know. I guess we'll never know. A few years ago, we sold the station, and have not heard or experienced anything like that at any of our other stations. Again, Bakersfield, Oildale, has a history, a dark history. And while I have plenty of great memories of the site, fun memories, taking my son to the Bakersfield Speedway, this memory, this story, will be one of the ones that I look back every October-ish with kind of a smile and kind of wonder, what was that? What really happened? If you enjoyed this, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, well, maybe this wasn't for you. No big deal. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Watch some of the other videos. There's some kind of fun travels that we do on here. And so I appreciate you watching. And until then, stay safe, stay healthy. Good night.